We are live on Facebook also, aren't we?
Yes.
We are live on Facebook, yes.
And you've told Richard we'll be recording the...
Yeah, so Richard, can we have your permission to record this, please?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You've written the participants.
Yeah,
Sorry,
admitting everybody.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Umesh, you're asking something.
No, I didn't catch what JVD said. Just clarify.
I mean, there's a big crowd now. The crowd's going up. So I thought we can start. We just have 2 minutes to go. So let's start on time.
Already.
Yeah, let's start on time.
100 odd people.
Yeah.
I mean, almost 100. You just touched 100, and I think most of them have to go back to Facebook now.
So we have a limit of 100, is it?
On this, yes. On Facebook, I mean, again, the rest would be the live stream only for them. So, yes.
Is there any way to inform them to get onto Facebook?
Yes. There's a way to send a message to the people in the waiting room. I'll do that.
You're doing that, Umesh?
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Before we start, Humayun, can you unmute yourself? I'll just introduce.
Just give me a second. I'm actually even making Humayun as a co-host so that he can also unmute. Is Humayun here?
Humayun, can you unmute yourself, please? There he is.
Yeah.
Richard, can you see Humayun on the screen?
Yes.
So that is Siraj Saab's son, Humayun.
My pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, Richard. Likewise.
Yeah, 25 years ago, we had a great trip with your father and Ashish and a couple of other birding colleagues. And I'll say a little bit about it in this call.
Lovely. Yeah, Ashish shared a couple of pictures, and my father also has a few pictures that he used to keep with him. So
yeah, I saw the pictures.
Yes. Yeah, he is one of those few people who's instilled in me continued interest in birds.
Great.
Ashish and the other senior members of the society have also been very instrumental in that. And Touchwood, been going now for 40 years, and hopefully will continue.
Yeah, that's great.
Umesh, do we have to keep telling people about the Facebook link? There's some more showing up.
I'm doing that.
Okay, dokie. Ash, we are on schedule. Can we start? We say, as Richard pointed out, we have a fair number of questions.
Yes, we should start now.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, please. Richard did point out we have a fair number.
Sir, you might have to unmute yourself. I just muted everyone. So,
yeah. Let's get started. Ash, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. We have a very special guest on this webinar today, Richard Grimmett from England. Many of you must have used his book. If you haven't, then you better start birding once again. Richard goes a long way back in his association with the erstwhile Birdwatchers Society of Andhra Pradesh and the new, and he renews it today with the Deccan birders. I have known Richard. I've been privileged to know Richard for a long time too, and he's been a very good and kind friend. So I have a small introduction for Richard. One can introduce him for a couple of hours, his achievements and what he's done. But I would like to read this out to you. Richard Grimmett is Director for Conservation at BirdLife International and a member of the BirdLife Secretariat's Senior Management Team. with lead responsibility for 5 global conservation programs. That is species, forests, flyways, marine and invasive species, as well as BirdLife's work with the private sector. He also oversees the implementation and monitoring of progress with BirdLife's 2022 strategy and the annual work planning of the organization. Prior to becoming Director for Conservation in charge of the BirdLife Asia program, running operations from the BirdLife regional offices in Indonesia and Japan. He is author of the first inventory of important bird areas in Europe, which has been a cornerstone for site conservation in Europe since 1989 and has led to many hundreds of important sites in Europe being designated as special protection areas, SPAs, under the European Union Wild Birds Directive. He's been the founding chairman of the well-loved Oriental Bird Club, now with over 2,000 members and represented in over 20 countries, with annual publications of the bulletin Birding Asia and the journal Folktale. He launched the OBC's Conservation Fund, which continues to support small-scale conservation projects across Asia. His publications of field guides include Birds of the Indian Subcontinent, with separate guides for Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Northern India, and Southern India. And the one for Bangladesh is in press. And these guides, especially the Indian ones, went on to get translated into 7 or 8 Indian languages, which was a great boon for people who don't know English. Richard has been to India many times, but he had a special visit to Hyderabad and the birdwatchers in 1996. And he might be talking about it during his presentation. And let me also tell members of the society that when he was here, we requested Richard for publications on birds from England, and his bird to the RSPB and the OBC then began them to send us their popular magazines, which we had in our library till some time ago. And not many people know of his ability to illustrate birds. But you can, if you have a copy of Guide to the Birds of Nepal, then it is beautifully illustrated with Richard's line drawings. And when I had asked him many years back, he said, please use them as you wish to. And if I am not mistaken, we did use many of them in Pitas of those days. Richard was our privileged guest for a week in Hyderabad when he was here. And when his book came out, one saw a big fat copy lying in front of my door, and he was so gracious to send me a copy of Birds of the Indian Subcontinent, all 888 pages of it. In that, he acknowledges all the bird watchers from that he met in Hyderabad, of the members of the BSAP, Siraj Taher, Rajiv Mathew, Mukund Kulkarni, etc. And also Tim and Skip mentions bird watchers of Andhra Pradesh in that same book for having commented on the distribution maps. Very few people commented on the distribution maps when Tim distributed them in Coimbatore, I think, when he came for the first PASOK meeting. So the pattern of today's talk, before I know all of you are waiting for Richard to chip in. The pattern for today's talk is that after I finish, Richard will speak a little bit, and there are some questions that people have already sent, and I'll be asking them of Richard's to answer them. Meanwhile, those who wish to may enter their questions in the chat, and we will select some and ask Richard at the end. So wishing you all a very good evening and a wonderful hour or so ahead. I invite Richard Grimmett to please take the stage.
Thank you very much, Ashish. It's an absolute pleasure to join you on what is a Saturday afternoon here and your evening. I'm really sorry I can't be with you in person. The world has changed, unfortunately, but it's a great opportunity to come together online. And I wouldn't have had this opportunity, I think, if I'd made a visit in person to meet so many people. So that's wonderful. India is very special to me. I first visited in 1978, and I've been back many times. I think I've probably spent close to 2 years in the subcontinent on and off from many visits. That first visit in 1978 was actually for nearly 9 months. So it's a really special place. I love the people. I love the birds, of course. I love the food. I wish I could spend more time in the country, and hopefully one day I'll have a bit more of an opportunity to do so and see some of your great birds again. So yeah, I think I'll hand back to you, Ashish, and I think you've got some questions for me, and yeah, we'll take it away.
So before I ask you the questions, I got so excited in trying to introduce Richard, I forgot a bit of what I had prepared. I would like to read something about Richard that a contemporary of his wrote in a wonderful book called Birders, Tales of a Tribe. And so here goes, okay? Richard shot straight into the birding charts, as it were, when he discovered a greenish warbler, the first in England. And you can very well imagine the next day the island tilted to that little spot when all the bird watchers in England trooped down to see what Richard had seen. And Richard recorded it as one of the longest nights of his life because it took that time to get a confirmation about the bird. And so this book is written by Mark Cocker, and he writes here, Richard's notebooks are full of little pencil sketches. A career in bird conservation has forced him to neglect the craft, but even a small body of work is testament to his ability to recreate birds that appear intensely alive. His first published line drawings in A Guide to the Birds of Nepal are probably his best. And he goes on to say that he has the faculty to reproduce on page what you have seen in the field, and it implies that he has a fuller mental grasp of both the bird's plumage details and the whole process of identification. And when Richard visited, as he said, in 78, he was all of 18 years old. And then the germ of the idea for the book must have formed. So taking it from there, Richard, here are some questions. The first is from an anonymous questioner. And so we'll take the heavyweights first. The question is, annual red listing of birds and other taxa create confusion in the mind of ornithologists and decision makers. Do you feel that we should go back to red listing every 4 years as we used to do earlier? This gives time for some thorough research and will avoid frequent annual changes in the categorization. For example, critical to endangered, or from near threatened, jump to critical. Your views?
Yeah, that's a heavyweight question from a heavyweight participant. It's a difficult one, and I sort of see both sides to the argument. But I mean, just to clarify, BirdLife produces an annual red list on behalf of IUCN. So we do this as an official service on behalf of IUCN. But the annual red list is really just to take account of sort of critical updates. It's not a comprehensive reconsideration of all species. So every year we take account of important taxonomic changes or important changes in status that have been brought to our attention. So that's annually, and then every 4 years we do a more comprehensive update. So it's not a complete sort of reworking every year. obviously by doing that, it means that we keep absolutely up to date on information, both from the point of view of taxonomy, important changes that mean that species are now recognized as such when they weren't before, or important new discoveries, information on increased enhanced threats either to the species or to their habitat. So we're really absolutely bang on and up to date. But I do sympathize with people trying to follow this. I myself struggle, in my work to keep track of my colleagues and their latest thinking. And I can imagine that, other birders and ornithologists, struggle too, but, and governments, of course, because this information is an important information service to governments, decision makers, planners. It must be challenging for them to, keep up to date. But I think on balance, well, no doubt for me on balance, being up to date, absolutely on top of the information is probably swings it in favour of those annual updates that we give.
Right. So the next question was, bird taxonomy is in great flux with frequent splits and shifting of species from one genus to another. Do you think that we have gone too far in splitting species on the basis of a single character, for example, song differences? Should we have only the morphological and genetic basis for splitting species?
Yeah, it's another heavyweight question. I sometimes worry that we've gone too far and we've split some species too many times. In BirdLife, for example, uses a system which is often referred to as the Tobias criteria, where we take account of a number of characters, differences in morphology, differences in vocalizations, differences genetically. So I'm not aware that we would split something just based on song, unless perhaps it was absolutely totally different. There may be some examples there, but we would tend to take account of a range of characters. I mean, when you look back, it's astonishing, that we did lump some species together when they really were clearly very different, and it's got to be, in the best interests of ornithology and conservation that we do recognise them as full species. But that said, I think there are some cases where perhaps we've gone a little bit too far, and of course, who knows how much further there is to go, or how much further people are want to push this, particularly when you've got these island forms in archipelagos like Indonesia and the Philippines, where you feel as though you could just keep splitting for forevermore. How much value does some of that really have? But again, on balance, it's got to be better to recognise species when they are distinct and give them a better chance to be recognised in ornithology and conservation. And so I'm broadly in favour, but I can understand the challenges. I mean, I struggle. When I come to update these field guides, I struggle. I rely on Tim, actually. Tim keeps track of these things. I struggle to keep track of them myself. It's not easy, but it's got to be beneficial, I think.
No Twitcher is complaining, I think. The third question was, your wonderful book, Birds of the Indian Subcontinent, was illegally distributed digitally. I didn't know that. This also shows the popularity of your book. What measures you think should be taken in future to stop such piracy?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that one. I suppose. I mean, just to say, I would rather my work gets to as many people as possible. So there's a part of me which, is happy to see readily and freely or cheaply available. But obviously, you have to take into account the interests of the publisher. The publisher has invested huge money in the 150 or so plates. That's a really massive investment up front by a publisher. It takes a long time to recoup that cost, and of course, some costs in terms of engaging the authors and printing and distribution and things. So one has to respect the investment that the publisher has made, and that is totally undermined by piracy of content and intellectual property. So what can we do? What can be done about it? Well, I think peer pressure. So if you're friends or you're aware of people who are doing it, then call them to account, because it's not right. Obviously, more sort of broadly, it requires the government authorities to step in and ensure that intellectual property is respected, because ultimately that's got to be in the interests of us all. Not sure I can say any more on that one, Ashish. It's not an area that I have a great deal of expertise in, but yeah.
Right.
Mixed feelings, I suppose, in summary.
Yeah. We move on to some questions sent in by Subramanya.
Okay.
And these relate a lot to how you started birding, etc. I'll read a few of them. Maybe you would like to club a few and then answer them at a go.
Okay.
So he asks, when did you start bird watching?
Yeah.
Watching birds, and how did your ornithological career begin?
My career, okay.
So when did you first visit India, and was it for bird watching or as a mere tourist? Which are the places that you watched birds in India? So this we'll take as a group. Would you like to answer them?
Yeah. Let me start with, when did I start birding? And I can't actually answer that question because I don't know. It feels like it's in my genes, which is a strange thing to say, but it feels like it's genetic. So perhaps it's many thousands of years ago that I first started birding, or my ancestors first started birding. I don't know, but it feels as though it's in my genes. My mum tells me I was birding from watching birds through the window from a really early age. I can recall seeing a field fair, which is a winter thrush, a winter visitor to the UK. It's a thrush. I think I recall seeing a field fair before I was 5. I'd noted things like tree creeper and lesser spotted woodpecker before I was 7. I went on my first serious bird watching trip alone as part of a YOC, a Young Ornithologists Club mini holiday when I was just 8. So it goes back a long time. So yeah, difficult to pin that one down. What's the next logical? So when did I come to India?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got a few pictures to show you. I don't know whether you want to. Ashish said he wanted to see some notebooks, so I've got a few notebooks to share with you as well. But I first came to India in 1978, and that was an overland trip. We between a group of 4 of us, we bought a VW camper van, and we drove overland across Europe, and then across Turkey, then across Iran and Afghanistan into the Indian subcontinent. So we travelled through Iran at the time of the Iranian Revolution, which was quite a challenge. And actually, it felt safer going into Afghanistan than being in Iran, which perhaps is a bit of a surprise thinking about the situation now. So it was an overland trip. Took us 6 weeks, and we arrived in India in November 1978. And I've got a picture of the group. I'll share my screen. I've got a picture of the group from 1978. My wife said to me, "Don't show them that picture. It's embarrassing." It's embarrassing, but I'll show you it anyway, because actually I think somebody did ask me to show it, so I'll show you it anyway. So just bear with me. Just give me a shout. Can you see the screen, Ashish?
Yeah, it's good. We can.
Okay, so this is a photo. We were serious birders, honest. It was a birding trip, and this is at the Shanti Kutia Lodge in Bharatpur, of course. And I don't know whether you'll know some of these characters, but from left to right, you have Chris Murphy, Les Norton, and then in the middle, that's me with some hair. And then you've got Frank Lambert. Some of you will have come across Frank Lambert. There's a lot of wild birding and sound recording. I think he's one of the main contributors to Zeno Canto with sound recordings. And then you've got Dick Philby there. This is from left to right. And then on the far right-hand side, you've got Nigel Redman.
Right.
So the four in the middle were in the camper van. And Chris Murphy on the left and Nigel Redman on the right travelled overland by public transport and hitchhiking. So their trip was even more challenging than ours. There's a story that when they crossed the English Channel from Dover to Calais, and they set about hitchhiking to India, they had a hitching sign which said "Bombay or bust." So it was an adventurous trip for us and for them. But I'm going to show you a page. These are my 5 notebooks from that trip, and the first one covers our overland journey across Iran and Afghanistan, Pakistan, and into India. Then the second 2, we spent a lot of time in Nepal, and then the 4th and 5th volumes were from our time in Assam and Meghalaya. And at that point, I don't think there had been any serious birders or serious bird watching in that part of India. There's obviously been collecting, by British and collectors, and Salim Ali had done some work there. But we were the first to visit quite a few interesting places, including the Baral range in Assam. But just here's I think Mark over states the notebooks of mine, but here's a page from when we were at the Pakistan-Indian border. And the great thing about going overland is that you get introduced to the avifauna of the Indian subcontinent gradually. It's not like getting out of an aeroplane in Delhi or Mumbai and you're overwhelmed by tens of new species. They all come to you gradually. So on this day, I had my first red wattled lapwing. There's a little sketch of it up on the left, and I noted that no surprises for you, but that they have extremely long yellow legs, and maybe the male was a bit bigger than the female, and they have a strange mechanical flight. And then it was also on that day my first sighting of black drongo. So I don't suppose you would pay much attention to a black drongo, but when you see your first, it's something really special. And I've drawn a picture of its forked tail, and I wrote, "Looping the loop over some telegraph wires," which I think is quite interesting. And then there's a little sketch there which was of a Siberian stonechat, a form or a species, depends on your taxonomy, that I was particularly interested to see. This will have been a male in probably a young male in fresh first winter plumage. So I was particularly interested to see how it looked compared to our European stone chats. So that's just a page from the first few days in the Indian subcontinent. And then here's another page. This was my first rosy pipit in non-breeding plumage, so very heavily streaked. I was very interested to see this pipit because I've always been a fan of pipits and how you tell them apart. And this was a really interesting one. And also my first painted snipe. Now, I should say we didn't have any field guides at this point. And because we were in our camper van, we actually took with us the 10 volumes of the Indian handbook, Ali and Ripley. So that was quite tough, sorting out some of these species from 10 volumes of the handbook. The only other reference work we had was Fleming's Guide to the Birds of Nepal and Ben King's Guide to the Birds of Southeast Asia. So it was quite a challenge identifying the pipits and the warblers and the buntings and other such difficult species. There's a nice little picture of a white-browed fantail and of a Hume's lesser whitethroat. I was interested to see this form. Again, some people split this, some people don't. And one of the things that Mark mentions in his book, which sort of made me laugh, but I dug it out, is in the back of my notebooks. I found I scribbled all sorts of irrelevant stuff. So there's our shopping list. I think that's even Dick Philby's writing there. I decided to write down the Arabic numbers, the details of my traveller's check, and then there's a great map, which I guess was helpful at the time, showing how to get to Okla, I think. I'm not absolutely sure, but anyway, lots of trivia in the back of my notebooks, which Mark mentions. And I just did want to share this notebook. This is from, well, Ashish just said 1996. I thought it was 1995. I had a wonderful trip there with Ashish and Rajiv Matthew, MS Kulkarni, and Siraj Ahmed Tahir. The four of us had a wonderful opportunity to see a very nice selection of birds, but obviously most noteworthy was we got to see Jurden's courser, and that moment with that bird appearing in front of us in the torchlight that I sort of scribbled not a very good picture of here will remain with me for a long time. I'm just going to show a couple of other pictures from my notebooks, and then I'll hand back to Ashish. I realise I have not necessarily answered all of Subu's questions, but here's a page from one of my notebooks from our fieldwork in Pakistan, where I was particularly interested to see Tytler's leaf warbler, and looking very closely at how you identify that. We had them singing up in the montane forests, and we were up there looking for western tragopan, and we did find them, but this was a painting I did of a feather of a male western tragopan that was one of many feathers scattered around a hunter's camp, and was, I think, the first evidence for us that they were present in the area. And those are some sketches of lemon rump leaf warbler. I've always been really fascinated by leaf warblers, called Pallas's leaf warbler at the time, of course, but now recognised as separate. So anyway, those are some sketches, and really back to Subu's question. I've had the wonderful opportunity of visiting a lot of India. I've never been to the Andamans. I've not been to Kashmir, and I've not been to Arunachal, which is a bit ironic, seeing as I've just authored with Tim and Carol a book on Northeast India, but I've never been to Arunachal, and hopefully there'll be a time when I manage to do that. So I think I'll hand back to you, Ashish. I'm sorry if I've gone on, but there's some.
Oh, that was wonderful. We could do another one if you're free in the future on just your notebooks and your stories. By the way,
I can tell you my handwriting's improved, but my illustration hasn't.
Okay. So both the skips are also on the show now. They are
great.
Yeah. Now the other question we'll go on. When did the idea of the Birds of India guide occur in your mind? How did you team up with the InSkips? And how much of your personal observations have gone into the field guide? These three together?
Yeah, well, Tim and Carol, I see, are on the call, so I may not get this right, but for a while we talked about the need for a decent field guide for the Indian subcontinent, and of course, there was one. Well, perhaps you're aware of this, perhaps not, but there was one plan for quite a few years. Ben King was working on a guide, and John Henry Dick had done the plates for that guide, and so we were expecting a quality book to come out, but for reasons Ben King will have to explain for himself, he didn't want to go with the plates that John Henry Dick had done, and of course they were then reproduced very sensibly by the BNHS in the pictorial guide. So yeah, he basically never completed that work. Interestingly enough, I actually approached Christopher Helm at the time, to do a field guide to the birds of China. I don't know why I had it in my head that would be a challenge. And Nigel said, well, yes, but why don't you do one on the birds of the Indian subcontinent? Why don't you do one with Tim and Carol InSkip? So I credit Nigel for sort of steering me, at least, in that direction. But I don't know whether you want to hand the floor to Tim and Carol to give their version of the story. So that's how it came about, and I can tell you maybe later, some of the ins and outs of working on a field guide. But was there anything else I've missed from your question there, Ashish, that I ought to?
Since you spoke about Tim and Carol, just give me a minute. Shrikant, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you open the chat for Tim and Carol, and if they would like to answer?
Yeah, actually, Tim is unmuted.
They're both unmuted.
Hi, Tim. Ashish here. Would you like to say something on what Richard just said? Or Carol?
Even Carol,
Hello?
I've asked it.
Oh,
Hi, Tim.
I'll leave it. Okay. Carol? Hello?
We can hear you, Tim.
All right. I thought Carol had started to say something, but maybe not. Okay. Well, my memory is much as what Richard has said, that it was Nigel Redmond that made the suggestion, possibly other people involved as well. And I think it was Richard approached us based on that to see whether we would be interested to join in with him. So it is more or less as he said, I think.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just maybe to add that, it's been a remarkable collaboration, certainly from my perspective. And, it's lasted, 20 plus years. And we had a very clear sort of separation of tasks where, Tim was in charge of led on the taxonomy and nomenclature. So he was our reference point. And he led on the preparation of the maps, which he painstakingly pulled together. And then Carol led on the sections of the text that covered status and distribution, that covered habits and habitat, that covered the vocalizations. And I led on the identification texts and working with the artists to sort out the plates and to try to get them as as accurately as we possibly could. So it was a really, really nice separation of responsibilities, and we sort of let each other get on with our respective roles, and thankfully we're very good friends still. And as you will know, you mentioned we've produced a number of spin-offs. Nigel Collar refers to this as salami publishing. We produced a number of spin-offs, and yeah, they've been good fun. It's been my hobby basically, because obviously I have a full-time job working for BirdLife, so it's been my hobby and something I get stuck into in the winter months when we can't go out birding, morning and evening. So that's, yeah. Back to you, Ashish. I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Yeah, Ashish seems to have taken a small break. Maybe Murthy here, I'd like to continue with the questions. The next one, again, is continuing with Subbu's questions. He asks, your field guide did put out distribution maps for all Indian birds. How did you map these distributions? Did you simply build up on what was already available in Surrey Murray's handbook for birds? Or did you work it up all new? And what was the procedure? How did you do that?
Well, as I said earlier, Tim led on the maps, and perhaps Tim would be good to respond to that. Tim, are you able to answer that one?
Okay. We did obviously use the handbook, Allen Ripley's handbook, as a basis, but that's very difficult to actually draw maps from the information given, because obviously because of the size of the books, the detail there is really quite limited. But so what I did was start with that, but then try to access all of the available literature for the subcontinent, and extract information, which I did in various ways, in various summaries. Mm-hmm. And for the common species, it's obviously not possible to map every record or even every area in detail. But so the common species are probably more poorly represented. They're probably overmapped in many cases, whereas the rarest species, it obviously was possible to, if I could find the localities that were given, I could map those as point localities. And then at a later stage, if we had quite a number of points in one area, I would join those up as a polygon to show the distribution in that area. And so it was basically building up a huge number of polygons for each species. Eventually that would come up with a fairly detailed map of actual records. The other way of doing it, which many bird books have used, is mapping likely distribution just based on habitat and general distribution. But I don't find that very helpful, because that really overmaps a very large number of species often, because they quite clearly from our knowledge, but some species don't occur in every available bit of habitat, we don't really know why. But so my method of trying to extract actual records and plot those, I felt was a far better way of dealing with it, and that's become easier in time because of the large number of records, plotted records that are now available in eBird, for instance, which so now it's possible to start with a fairly detailed and accurate map of distribution and just add in records from other sources other than eBird. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Tim, for that. Now, Richard, there is one more question from Subbu, who asks, you spoke about Ben King's book, and so Subbu says, although Ben King's and Martin, so here he means the Southeast Asian work, Ben King's and Martin Woodcock's works had already set the tone for illustrations, almost on the lines of the Peterson guides. And your field guide for the first time illustrated every Indian bird species properly, much better than the pictorial guide for India. What went to make it happen, and how much of an effort the artists had to put in? How many revisions of the plates happened before the final ones were accepted?
Yeah, I mean, we did our best to choose the right artists for the right groups of birds. So, you know, we were able to use, for example, Peter Heyman to work on the shorebirds, and Clive Byers to work on the warblers and buntings, and Carl de Silva, well-known Indian artist, to work on some of the larger Indian water birds, and he did the parrots, the hornbills. So we tried to choose the right artists, and then you've got to decide which plumages to illustrate, because you've got to try and cover off all of the variation, and of course the subspecies to illustrate. So you've got to get that right, and then it's working with the artist. They do a rough, so they do an outline. So you try to get the shapes right, the proportions right, and then you get a first illustration, and you then work with them. Some of them easier to work with than others to try and get it right. And for many of the plates, we would go together to the British Museum at Tring, and I mean, Carl came over to stay with me for probably more than a month, and we'd go over to the British Museum at Tring. We'd pore over the literature and photographs where we had them, and we'd do our best to get them right. And obviously, sometimes it was easier than others, and invariably when you opened a drawer at the museum at Tring, it would be a lot more complicated than you'd think it was going to be. So I remember Carl had done the cuckoos, and I remember opening the drawer of the cuckoos at Tring, and it was a much more complicated picture in terms of variation and immature plumages and things. So you've got to then work with the artist to try and get it as good as you can. I mean, what was more challenging then than now is that then you had to get the plate right, because the publisher reproduced the plate. Whereas now, if you've got an image that you're not happy with, you can simply digitally remaster the plate and insert or cut and paste plates to create new ones and take out poor illustrations and replace them with better illustrations. But when we brought out the first edition, we had to get those plates right, and if there were some images that were not right, you had to either live with them or try and improve them. I've got some pictures by Carl which I wanted to show, which would be a good point to do that. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I hope this works. Yeah. So this is one of Carl's. This is part of Carl's plates. Part of a plate by Carl of the parrots. I'm very, very fortunate to own the original, and you know, Carl did an amazing job on this plate. You know, he certainly wasn't adequately paid for the work that he did. You know, sorting out the differences between plum-headed and blossom-headed and slaty-headed and grey-headed parakeets, and the differences between the females and the immatures, and you lose detail when you reproduce the plates in the published works, and you know, the detail that Carl was able to depict is just fantastic. And of course, you don't now see this whole plate as it was originally painted, because it's sort of been digitally remastered, with some images removed. So you've got to go back to that first edition to see the reproduction of this entire plate. Another one is his wonderful plate of hornbills, and the care he took to depict the differences between the sexes and the immature forms, the coloration of the bill, for example, and the markings on the bill. Carl he took great care in getting these right, and he and I worked on these plates for quite some time to get them right. I've just got one more plate to show you, which is a plate by Clive. So we were very fortunate to have both Clive Byers and Craig Robson illustrating for the guide. Now, perhaps they're not to the standard of Lars Johnson or Dan Zetterstrom, but they're really, really good, and they depict the differences, the subtle differences. For example, here the differences between Hume's desert and regular lesser whitethroats. They're really, really good, and it's so satisfying to see that work come together, and these difficult forms to be illustrated so accurately. And Clive did the warblers, did the Philoscopus warblers very well, the Sylvia warblers here, and the buntings, for example. And Craig also did some lovely plates. So there's a lot of work that goes into plates, and I think we did a pretty good job.
Oh yes. So in hindsight, do you think working with so many artists, it would have been better to have one? Why did you not choose a single artist for the entire work? Why so many? Because they created different styles, they have different styles of painting, and the plates are different. When you go through the book, the different style suddenly comes up. Would it have been better if one artist had handled them?
I don't think you would have found an artist to paint them well, and to be able to manage the job. Actually, I mean, I don't know how many illustrations we ended up having, but if that had fallen to one artist, you might have had to wait till now to see the first edition. So I think the job was too big, and we wanted to get the guide out in I think the first target was 3 years. I think it took us 5, but we wanted to get it out quickly and choose the right people to do it.
I don't know whether you want to answer this, but the question is, are you working on an update?
Is the publisher online?
Okay, we get your answer.
Yeah, we are. Tim and I have been working with Constant on Birds of Bangladesh, and we haven't yet seen the proofs for that. So that's the next one that's in train, and we've benefited hugely from Paul's detailed knowledge, long history of living and birding in Bangladesh. So that's the next one coming, and we're working on a second edition to the Birds of Sri Lanka with Deepal. That's the one that, if I'm working on any, that's the one I'm working on at the moment. And then we have got an agreement with the publisher to do a next edition of the Indian subcontinent, but we've got a couple more years to deliver that. So we've begun it, but it's a while before it will be available on the shelves.
Wonderful. I think Carol would like to say something. Hi, Carol. Ashish here. If you can hear us, please go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Carol.
I'll actually send a request for the unmute.
Yeah, Carol perhaps can't unmute because she's there. You go.
I've done it now, have I?
Yes,
Yes.
you're audible.
Clearly, Carol.
All right. Yeah. All right. Yes. What do I want to say? Oh, well, just to thank Richard for such a wonderful, presentation. And just want to say, as he points out, over 20 years, the three of us, been working together on these field guides, and we are committed to doing so for at least another two or 3 years. So, as he says, it just shows that that we are a strong team. And as I remember it, yeah, I'm sure whose idea it was at the beginning. Yeah, I guess it was Nigel who suggested it, but it was Richard really who suggested it to Tim and me, and was that driving force right at the beginning, to get us started and to start working together.
How did you divide the work, Carol, amongst the three of you?
Richard already
He's done that. Right.
Okay. Yeah, we've done that right from the beginning, and it's worked really well. So, if Richard and I obviously can't work on the text at the same time, so he starts at the beginning and I start at the end. And so we do like half each, and then we swap over, and that's how Richard and he didn't mention that bit, but that's how we managed to work on the text at the same time.
Right.
We just do half the species each, and then we change over. The publishers have been brilliant, actually, with us all this time, very patient, and various delays on the way. Always really supportive.
I remember that in November of that year when we had the first PASOK in Coimbatore.
Oh, yeah.
Tim brought in all the maps on paper, and he went around asking, do you think this is all right? Would you like to mark something?
Yeah,
Please mark on it.
Yeah, that was...
I had the cheek gall to say, no, I can't do it offhand. You have to give me all of them. So he did give them all to me overnight. And I sat up and did them, and then we sent them back. He also sent them, he made copies for 2-3 of us. And then we worked on it and sent them back. Yeah, wow. It was a great experience.
That was 1988, was it?
98.
98, Coimbatore. Okay, right. Yeah, so anyway, we're looking to the future now with the new, this will be quite a challenge, the new fully revised field guide for the whole subcontinent. Perhaps that'll be our swan song.
I correct myself, that was in November of 96.
96, okay.
Because the guide came out in 98. So
right.
The book came out in 98. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So maybe after this next one, you know, it's the nationals in the region they should be. I think you should be doing after that.
Yeah, our guide can definitely be bettered. So you know, you've only got to look at, you know, the standard of field guides now in Europe and North America, and so there's room for improvement, but we'll only edge it in that direction. But at some point, somebody can try and meet the standard of the work of Svensson and Zetterstrom and Milani in the European guide. I mean, that's just an amazing
it is
piece of work, and you know, it's possible, but that would require a massive reworking, and that's the next generation that hopefully will come down the track at some point.
Well, Carol has been able to do a massive work for birds in Nepal. The 5 or 7 volume large work that you did recently, Carol, that was amazing. It's only available online, I mean, as PDFs. If
Yes,
we
it's
could
only,
something like
it
that
is,
as a handbook, it would be great.
yes, it's just available online, but the best place, the best link to find it is on the Himalayan Nature website,
Yes.
and they have a searchable index there, Himalayan Nature. You can find that easily on Google, and then under their citizen science section, you just have to type in, you know, the first few words of a species English or scientific name, and the account comes up. Tim was co-author, actually. It wasn't just me. And also there was a whole team of us, you know, Hemsagar Barrel, one of the main ones. And I think there's about 15, 12 maybe co-authors to that.
You're right, yes.
Mm.
So shall we get back, Richard? So talking of that, now Hem sent a question. Hem Baral from Nepal. Richard, this is for you. Richard, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
The question is, with more birds getting red listed and none of their status being improved, what would be BirdLife's strategy in terms of bird conservation in the Indian subcontinent, which has the densest human population on the planet in the coming years? Is it more of the same, or can we expect drastic steps to halt the rate of species decline? Richard.
Yeah, we're thinking about this at the moment at BirdLife, because we're developing our next strategy, and it's a tough one. I think, and this is a personal view, I'm not speaking on behalf of BirdLife here, but I think we've got to stick with our agenda that is, you know, species and sites. So personally, you know, we can't let, you know, birds go extinct. We have got to continue to work on, you know, the conservation of Bengal floricern and the Indian vultures, and in my view, still, you know, look for species like Jerdon's courser and Himalayan quail. So there is an important species conservation agenda, which I don't think we can step back from, despite just how challenging it is. There's obviously a really important, you know, continued agenda about conserving the most important places. So the BNHS have done an amazing job in the identification of important bird and biodiversity areas across India. You know, those are the sort of the top sites for bird conservation. We have to give them, you know, special attention. We have to press for their protection, press for their better management, press for their safeguarding in planning and policies. So that network of sites is not something we can walk away from either. So in the cases of species and sites, you know, I don't have any magic solutions. It's the same, and we've got to just keep going at it. But we've also got to significantly step up as a conservation community when it comes to, you know, the wider environment. So what's happening to our birds in the agricultural environment? Our birds in forests beyond protected areas, our birds in urban habitats, because they are disappearing before our eyes, particularly birds in the agricultural environment, and we've seen that happen in a way that's been decimating for our bird populations in Europe because of agricultural policies and the perverse subsidies that there are for intensification of agriculture, and the lobby that comes from the agrochemical industry. So we've really got to, as conservationists, we've really got to step up and try to engage in terms of agricultural policy and land use, and press for more sustainable and the maintenance of diverse agricultural systems. That's absolutely critical. I mean, when I first visited India in '78, there were farmland birds everywhere, shrikes, hoopoes, rollers. The agricultural landscape was full of birds. And that is still the case in some parts of India, but in many other parts of India, the intensification has seen an end, or has had a major impact in that area. So we've got to step up in terms of engaging in agricultural policy and agricultural land use, demonstrating alternative approaches to food production. And the other area we have to step up is engagement. We've got to get more people on side that believe passionately in, the cause of nature and the need for environmental sustainability. And that's not just about believing and supporting. It ultimately has to lead to, us all changing the way we live and the way we eat and the way we consume, I'm afraid. And we're all having to think about that much more now than perhaps we did decades back. So more of the same when it comes to species and sites, and significantly stepping up when it comes to the wider environment and people engagement. I wish it was easier, and obviously challenges are huge in a country like India. But as your economy develops, as wealth is spread across the population, hopefully we can also see a different way of engaging with and relating to and recognizing the need for environmental sustainability.
You mentioned
sorry if that was all too high, airy-fairy and and didn't answer the question, but I don't have any magic solutions. I mean,
I understand you're on target. So you spoke about the three mystery birds of India, and Rajshekhar Tumala asks whether there can be some sort of different thinking out of the box, a different kind of intervention to try and search for the Himalayan quail or the other species. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are we doing everything the way it should be done, or some out of the box thinking can?
Well, I think the first thing to say is we've got to be really careful that we don't write these birds off. So, I remember a time when Jerdon's courser was presumed to be extinct, and you stopped looking for it. Thankfully, there were continued efforts by the BNHS, and it was rediscovered, and hopefully that will happen again. So we mustn't assume these birds are extinct. Out of the box, Himalayan quail. The only thought I've got is, if it's a quail, it's presumably quite vocal during the breeding season. Obviously, I don't think we know how it called, but I don't know whether anybody's gone back through the literature and looked at that. But maybe placing voice recorders out in potentially suitable habitat during the wet season, and are there any unidentifiable quail-like birds calling away in the Western Himalayas that then, you know, merit further investigation. I mean, you can get these, you know, these sound recorders now. You can leave them out for weeks, I think, and obviously there's, you know, a bit of work to go back through those recordings, but that can be done digitally as well. So, and India's, you know, well known for its, you know, state-of-the-art technological capabilities. So maybe something to put some, you know, bright young technology students to work on. But that's the only out-of-the-box thought I've got. But don't give up on it. It could still be there. It's difficult to imagine a bird in the Western Himalayas has gone extinct, but I don't know. These things do ultimately, one or two of them do ultimately disappear forever, and they, you know, that may be the case, but let's not give up on them.
Right. The next question is from Karen, who's at ICRISAT. We had birded at ICRISAT when you were here, and the question is, in your experience, what are the most successful ways to introduce children, elementary students, to birding? What sort of scope and sequence of birding skills and activities are most useful for young learners?
Well, I'm going to say something, but I would like to hand over to Carol on that, because she's stronger in this area than I am. But yeah, I mean, just you know, I believe passionately in bird clubs, you know, school bird watching clubs, getting kids out in nature. Obviously, you know, it's more difficult now with safeguarding issues than it was when I started birding. I mean, I got seriously interested because of the Young Ornithologists Club of the RSPB with a really, you know, key leader who got us out, showed us some good birds. I think getting kids out, giving them that opportunity is a good one. Giving them a simple book to use. You know, I think kids love to check things off on lists, and you know, like the competitive edge that can sometimes go with that. Yeah, we've got to get schools more active with their bird clubs. They need to be supported with materials. We've all got a responsibility in this area, you know, with our own kids, or with, you know, our kids of our friends and relatives and things. So yeah, we've got to work on it, because I think there is a risk of a bit of a disconnect between young people and nature, which you know, is partly as a result of safeguarding issues and sort of greater anxiety about kids being off on their own, and partly perhaps because of the other attractions to young people these days. But Carol, have you got any bright suggestions on this one?
I think you've answered the question very well, Richard. Though you said that you couldn't. Yeah, I agree with what you say. It is a challenge, certainly, to get, say, in Europe, the UK, and the West, to get children out. I think one thing is to make sure when they do go that they really have a good time. They enjoy themselves. You know, I think we all need to remember we need to enjoy your birding. You know, don't get other things get in the way. And so, you know, to get them out in the field, maybe even bribe them with some treats, you know. It doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned, you know, as long as you make sure that, don't make them, if you go out in the field, make sure they're all involved, they all get a chance to look through the telescope, or they can look, they each share the binoculars, and they've got, you say, a checklist to tick off is good. And just to make sure that, you know, when at the end of it, you know, they really have enjoyed it and go home and want to come along again. Because we take it for granted maybe that they will enjoy it because we do so much, but you know, if they have to walk too far, they get wet and cold, you know, what do you expect? You know, they're not going to enjoy it. So anyway, that's the only thing I can think to add. School clubs, really important. Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Richard, there's one last heavy question for you. What is your opinion about the 4 avian taxonomies of the world and the ongoing attempts by IOU to reconcile some of them? Will some of the decisions taken by the IOU checklist working group be considered by your team for future books on Indian ornithology? This is from Praveen Jayadevan.
I'm so pleased that Tim's on this call. I'm going to pass that to Tim. I mean, it's a challenge as authors to keep track of these things, and it's frustrating that you can't get agreement. And almost embarrassing sometimes the way we've chopped and changed because we've decided to follow one authority rather versus another, and they've then changed. But it's got to be a good thing if we can bring all of this together. I think I can say that we've decided we're going to be following HBW and BirdLife because you've got to really try and follow someone. Although there are a few decisions they've taken that I know Tim thinks are not very good, and I share his views on some of them. I mean, I can't understand, for example, why they're not splitting the Sri Lankan form of scaly thrush or white's thrush. That just, I mean, having seen that in the field, I can't understand why you would continue to lump that one. But I don't know whether, Tim, you can provide a more thoughtful response to that question. Yeah, Tim, sorry to pass that one to you.
That's all right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pity that we don't really seem to be getting anywhere nearer to an agreed world taxonomy. I think the problem is that there's too many people involved with different backgrounds and different ideas of what should be done. So it looks as if we're always going to have some differences, and that there will be several different taxonomies floating around all the time. But and as you say, we've agreed to follow HBW and BirdLife, which will be somewhat different from, for instance, IOC or eBird. It seems to be somewhat different again at the moment, and that's what's being most commonly used now in India. But so it's a pity in a way that what we're doing is going to be slightly different. But as long as all the differences are clearly annotated and understood, well, not understood, but possible to see the differences within a book, I hope that will not be too difficult for people to get along with.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, for that.
Right.
I know it's a difficult decision to make, and as birders, it's difficult to keep juggling between different taxonomies. But I think birders learn quickly enough. Either they ignore the changes or they accept them one way or the other. So here's a question that I have for Richard. Given the digital technology that's come about, and with the increasing prevalence of IDs, digital IDs and calls and what have you, even QR codes are entering field guides where you can point a smartphone and get, a song of a bird or a distribution map. Do you think analog birding, as I'd like to call it, is still relevant? Because you even have optics which identify the bird for you. You just have to point the optic at a bird and you're sitting there and it identifies everything for you. Where is this taking us, this technology?
I don't know, but I still love picking up my bins and the challenge of identification, and I love the feel of a book in my hand. It is getting easier. I mean, the online photo libraries, sound recording libraries. I mean, none of this was in place when we produced the first edition of the book. So there's a massive amount of reference material out there. I mean, I was out with some friends just a couple of days ago, and we were discussing what this tree was. What's this tree that we've been cycling past for years? And he got his smartphone out and pointed at the tree, and he identified it as a Swedish white beam. Well, where's the fun in that? I mean, that's just it's at the end of the day, it's a recreation, and I've never really thought about it very much. But I mean, it's a bit like, I'm not a hunter, and I don't really get hunting. Well, let's say take a fisherman. I'm not a fisherman. But I mean, it would be no fun if you sat down at a pond and somebody brought the fish to you and said, "Here you go, here's your fish." I mean, it's just nothing interesting in that whatsoever. So I mean, birding's going to live on, and I think some of these tools are useful, but it takes away some of the fun of it if all the answers are there and at the press of a button on an app. I don't know where it's going to get to. I mean, I don't know how much optics can develop further so that they identify the bird for you and take a picture of it for you and file it for you in your. I don't know. Maybe that's all down the track, but not for me. I just like going out in the bins and the scope. I can record things on my phone now. I mean, it's amazing to be able to do sound recording on your phone. I mean, again, when we were on our first visits, we weren't recording the calls of birds at all. We didn't have the equipment to do it. You would have had to have carried a suitcase full of cassette tapes to even stand a chance. So, now you can record this stuff on your phone, and that's fun too. Take amazing pictures through your phone. That's fun too. Good optics now, of course. When we started birding, the optics were very poor, and only took a heavy downpour of rain, and you couldn't use your binoculars for a week, and your telescope would be similarly out of action. So there's a lot of things that have improved, which is fantastic for the modern birder, but perhaps some of these more advanced developments are taking us too far. But that's for other people to decide. I guess everybody has to decide where they benefit from these services and tools and don't.
So for those who would like to know what cassettes are, you can get in touch with us old timers a bit later. Many of us do not know what that is. There's one question from Murthy, and he asks whether the extractive industry, quarrying, etc., they can play a role because they destroy the environment. Can they play a role in biodiversity protection? Are there cases from around the world that come to mind to you where they have done so?
Yes, I mean, you've only you travel around India and you see the what's been left behind, from quarrying and small scale mining, and it's not. It doesn't look good. It's not good. But BirdLife works with two big international mining companies, Heidelberg and Cemex, and those two companies have made commitments in terms of biodiversity conservation. So we work with them first in doing a proximity study to look at where they're operating or plan to operate, and how those plans overlap with areas of conservation importance. So to try and avoid impacts on the most sensitive places. We work with them to put in place best practice guidance on mining development and restoration, and these companies are increasingly making commitments to avoid negative impacts on biodiversity, no net loss, or in the case of some companies, net positive impact. So that they're moving in the right direction. It's really important that they are held account, and I think that's an important role for the birding community. We are out and about. We can see what they're up to. They need to be held to account if they're continuing to pursue damaging practices without appropriate environmental impact mitigation and restoration. Just lastly to say that there are opportunities for some significant the mining sector, so particularly those involved in sand and gravel extraction. If they do that in the right way, there are opportunities to create habitats, create wetland habitats where they didn't previously exist, and the creation and management of those habitats can be written into their permitting. So we've got some really good examples in Europe now of where some fantastic new habitat is being created as a result of gravel, sand and gravel mining, and it will be nice to see a similar approach being taken in India. BirdLife is working with Heidelberg in India, and we're starting small, so helping them to understand what species are occurring at their quarries, what habitats are of value in their quarries, where the opportunities might be for habitat protection and restoration. Those are small steps, but you've got to remain positive and try to find those win-win opportunities. And they, these sectors can have a significant negative impact, but there are ways to minimize and avoid that and get some positive benefits coming out of collaboration. So there's no simple yes no answer, but let's try and explore the opportunities.
Right. So we've come to the end of these questions, Richard. I'd like to throw a fun question at you. And if you have some time later after that, perhaps take a few questions from the chat that have come up later on. Are you okay?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
How are we doing with the time, Shrikant or Murthy? Can we go ahead?
We're okay, Ashish.
Okay. So my question to you, Richard, is if you were given the choice, which bird would you want to become and why?
Whoa. Never thought of that one. I've been asked what's my favourite bird, and my favourite bird is a willow warbler, which I think it has been recorded. I'm not absolutely sure. Tim might correct me on this. I don't know whether it has or it hasn't, but it's an Afro Palearctic migrant, and it's a Phylloscopus warbler. Has a wonderful song when it arrives in the spring. It's so uplifting to hear the first willow warblers coming through, and in the autumn, the young birds, in particular, the first winter birds, are just a wonderful sort of combination of yellows and olives. And I love warblers. I love seeing them, passing through on migration. But willow warbler is my favourite bird. Whether I'd want to become a willow warbler, I don't know. I mean, they have a really challenging migration. So willow warblers breed as far east as the Russian Far East. So they go right across the Palearctic, and those birds will winter in Africa. So that's one incredible migration, and they skirt obviously the Himalayas. They go around the north of the Himalayas into Africa. That's one hell of a migration. So I think I can imagine that's not much fun. but I suppose at the end of it, you get to spend, if you're successful, you get to spend the winter in a nice, warm, sunny place, and you get to visit some really interesting places on migration. There and back. Sorry?
No passports involved in the bargain.
No passports involved, no. No.
So, Richard, thank you very much for this wonderful, wonderful talk. It's been a privilege and a great honor to have you with us. We will go on to some questions that have come into the chat. And I'll request Shrikant or Umesh, if you've been following them, would you like to read them out, a couple of them to Richard, so that he can answer?
I can do that. I've consolidated.
Umesh, please.
Umesh. Go ahead, Umesh.
Richard, this is a question regarding the plates that you've used in the book. The question is, we've loved the accuracy and the user-friendliness of the new editions, but we do miss the pleasing, subtle pastel color backgrounds which were there in the early editions.
Oh, right. That's interesting. Yeah, I also miss them. But the challenge is that if you digitally remaster the plates, you have to remove those pastel backgrounds because they vary between plates, and you may be adding new illustrations. So that's why some of them have gone. But yeah, I like them too, which is why we chose them to start with. But yeah, some things are beyond our control, and that's one of them.
Right. Thank you. I'll move on to the next one. What are the factors, in your opinion, that maybe limit Indian ornithologists from coming up with a field guide that can compete with yours?
This is from Anjali. Umesh just asked the...
I don't think there are any. You've just got to get a group of people together and obviously you need a bit of money behind you. It's probably the artwork. So you know to do better, which is possible. As I said earlier, you'd need artists that could illustrate in the more difficult forms. One downside of our plates is that you could argue that quite a few of them were illustrated by people who perhaps hadn't seen the birds in the wild and didn't quite capture the character and the shapes. So you need artists that really are familiar with the birds, that have studied them in the field, that know what they look like. If you can find artists that can illustrate, then the authors, it's an easy life being an author, but the artwork is the real challenge. So try and get some Indian artists to work on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any more questions, Umesh?
And I mean, just to come in. Sorry, if there are Indian artists that you would recommend for paintings for the future in our books, then do share their work with us. We're always looking for young artists that can contribute. So, and the opportunities are there. We're redoing quite a few of the plates for the next edition. So it'd be lovely to have the next Carl de Silva involved in the next edition.
There are several very good artists, Richard. I'll put you in touch with them.
Yeah, great.
I think there's one on the call as well with us today. Yeah.
Umesh, any others?
I have a small question myself. In the field, why would you prefer using pencils instead of pens?
I have always used pencils, and amazingly, when I was going back through my notebooks from that first India trip, I can still read it. I mean, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to read what I'd written, and it would sort of, have faded. But I can still read my writing. But I guess there's a risk there that over time it will fade. I just love the feel of a pencil. I've always loved the feel of a pencil. I love, you know, I like to be able to. I don't do anything like as much sketching as I used to, and my notebooks nothing like as sort of varied as they used to be. But I just love that feel of a pencil, and I've always worked in pencil. But yeah, some risks. Right? Lots of people use pens.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. I think we are done with questions on the chat. Srikanth, anything you have received?
No, not really. I mean, there is a question from Facebook. I think I'll ask one of the questions. The question is from Farida Tampal. Okay. There's a huge citizen science movement happening all over the globe, and eBird has become one of the most popular platforms for bird data recording. Have you ever used the data for any of your work?
I think Tim touched on that earlier, that we are increasingly using eBird information from the, you know, for the maps and the distribution text. And there's been such a, I mean, the last, you know, full edition of our guide was 2011. So we're looking at, you know, an edition that will be, you know, 10 plus years later. So in that time, there's been a huge amount of information gathered over eBird. So I imagine Tim is going to be looking at that, you know, really, very closely, and it's a really useful data source. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
Tim, I don't know whether you want to add anything on that, on use of eBird.
Yeah, as you say, I will be using that extensively for preparing or revising the existing maps for the new edition. But I should point out that in some areas in the subcontinent, eBird has not really taken off. Like, well, in Bhutan, for instance, it is being used, but not very extensively at the moment. So the out of I did look recently, I think, and out of over 700 species on the Bhutan list, there's something only about well, it's about 750 species maybe now. Only about 650 or around that figure have records in eBird at the moment, and elsewhere, even in fairly thoroughly birded areas like Himachal Pradesh, the number of species covered by eBird records is not that comprehensive at the moment. I'm sure it will become so, but in Himachal there's well over 100 species recorded in the state which have no eBird records at the moment. This is partly because of obviously old records have not been added. Historical records, they are being added, but they're not all there at the moment. And also there are a large number of people that don't use eBird, that they provide their records in other fora like Facebook or just published accounts, etc. So it is necessary at the moment to use a large range of sources still to come up with comprehensive maps.
Right. I think we've come to the end of our questions, and it gives me great pleasure in thanking Richard and Tim and Carol for chipping in at the right moments and bolstering this lovely webinar into something special for Deccan birders and for all the others who've tuned in, not only from India, but from other countries. Thank you very much, and wish all three of you long life and a new edition very quickly.
Yeah, we'll come online 10 years from now and talk about that third edition.
Great. Great. All the best.
I look forward to that.
Good. Okay. Well, it's certainly been my pleasure, and yeah, take care of the birds. Get out there, enjoy them. It's a wonderful way to live a life, to enjoy watching birds. So just just enjoy birding and take care of birds and do what you can for their conservation. Yeah, I hope to see and meet some of you again in person before too long.
Yes.
Ashish, I hope it won't be another 25 years before I set foot in your part of the world. But yeah, until then, been a pleasure.
Come for a book tour. Come for a book tour.
Yeah.
See you,
All
Richard.
right. All right.
Enjoy yourself. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Richard. Thanks a lot, Tim. We'll keep writing to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you all participants for a very lovely session, and you're finding the time and spending time with us here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Great. See you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you. Bye.